It's the future. A 1, 2, y'all. It's the future. A 1, 2, it's the future. There ain't no future unless we build it now. It's the future. A 1, 2, y'all. It's the future. A 1, 2. It's the future. There ain't no future unless we build it now. United States, Africa, we salute ya. A new state of mind, I introduce ya. Close your eyes and visualize the rise of a new paradigm. Solar powered skyscrapers.
Welcome to the Africa Must Unite podcast, a podcast dedicated to inspiring African people worldwide to rise up, organize, and struggle for Pan-Africanism, a unified, liberated, socialist Africa, the only permanent solution to the exploitation and oppression of African people, no matter where they happen to be born or happen to live in the world. Now please, welcome the hosts of Africa Must Unite.
Africa's future is now, so get ready.
Greetings. Welcome to the 21st podcast. Can you believe it, Amar? This is our 21st episode on tactics. I am Mama D.
I'm Amar Nsoroma.
And we are the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party. And as always, we want to start with important dates in the month of September. And Gaddafi leads successful coup in 1969 on September 1st. On September 2nd, Ho Chi Minh, revolutionary leader of the Vietnamese struggle, died in 1969. On the 3rd, Samir Amin, African Marxist, was born in 1931. You remember his piece, Class Struggle in Africa? He did one too, and we studied that. On the 9th, Mao Zedong, revolutionary founder of the Chinese Communist Party, died in 1976. On the 12th, one of our favorites, Amilcar Cabral, was born in 1924, and also Steve Biko, revolutionary president of BCM, killed by South African police in 1977. On the 13th, Geronimo Pratt was born in 1947. On the 15th, Lamine Mamadou Janghai, young pioneer and member of the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, was born on this day in 1945. On the 17th of September, Occupy Wall Street movement began on this day in 2011, not 19 anything. That's more recent thing. In 2011, trying to deal with that capitalist reality in the U.S. and globally. And on the 18th, our number one favorite, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, revolutionary Pan-Africanist, was born in 1909. On the 19th, what do we have there? PAIGC of Guinea-Bissau, founded under the leadership of Amilcar Cabral in 1956. And on the 24th, E. Franklin Frazier, sociologist, was born in 1894. And on the 24th, all these important things in terms of Guinea-Bissau. Guinea-Bissau Independence Day, 1973. On the 25th, Eric Williams, African historian, was born in Trinidad in 1911. And on this same day, on the 25th, armed struggle began in Mozambique in 1964. On the 26th, Winnie Mandela, South African freedom fighter, born in 1936. And we have to give her credit for carrying on, isn't that right, Amar?
Yes.
Her husband in prison.
She was all those years.
Yeah,
decades.
She was the one that really helped to popularize the whole struggle against apartheid, wasn't she?
Yeah. After 27 years imprisonment, she was doing the work.
Yeah, she was doing the work. We got to give her credit. On the 28th, very important thing, Guinea voted no to French colonialism and referendum in 1958. And on this day, David Walker, author of Appeal, was born in 1796. This is an important figure, too, because what did he say? I mean, he was never enslaved, was he?
No, and he was one of the first Africans in the States to recognize and print the injustice that we were being subjected to, and it was calling for the unification of all Africans everywhere to fight against those injustices.
Isn't that important? I mean, that's a Pan-African idea, that whole point, and that's back in 1796. So we have a long history of Pan-Africanism. On the 30th, Botswana becomes independent in 1966. And, I just want to say a word about Guinea's voting no to French colonialism in a referendum in 1958, the first French colony to do so. And, I just want to read this section from his biography on Sekou Touré. And it says, on the very day on which the referendum results were declared, a French government official arrived in Conakry to inform Sekou Touré that Guinea was held to have seceded from France and that there would be no more French economic aid. All French officials, numbering some 3,000, would be withdrawn within 2 months. The manner of Guinea's independence was both dramatic and unprecedented. In their haste to leave, the French took what they could with them and destroyed what they could not carry. Government records and files were torn up or burned. Offices were stripped of their furniture and telephones, even electric light bulbs. Can you believe it? And the handles on doors were removed. That's real petty, isn't it?
Yeah.
French administrators, doctors, teachers, engineers, and businessmen flocked out of Guinea, leaving virtually no trained replacements. Only 150 French government employees remained in Guinea, and 110 of these 150 were teachers who chose to stay as volunteers. All French army units were withdrawn, including army doctors who took their medical supplies with them. French members of the police force left after first smashing the windows and furniture of their barracks. Guinean students in Paris and Dakar were stripped of their scholarships. It's real petty.
Wow.
French public investment in Guinea ceased, and the French government tried to stop private firms from investing there. When at the end of November 1958, Sekou Touré moved into the former governor's house in Conakry, he found that all the furniture and pictures had been removed, the cellars emptied, and the crockery smashed. Even the telephone had been ripped out. And that's just a tip of the information about how they reacted. But, the point we wanted to bring up, Amal, was the fact that to be the only French colony to vote no, and it's not like Sekou Touré or the PDG, their party, could be everywhere where each person voted, all up and down the country. So for all up and down the country, people going into the polling places and voting no meant that you had to have done some powerful political education. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it's all this propaganda saying, you better not. No other colony's going to vote no. You'll be by yourself. You'll be like a virtual dependent thing, with no help from anybody. It was scare tactics. But still the people went and voted no. And that meant that the party, PDG, had to have gone up and down that country and politically educated the people about what it means to be free, why we had to be free on our own, why we were going to struggle for socialism. That's what we call an important part of tactics, which is our focus today. Tactics meaning for us at this point in history, dealing with getting our people all on the same page, politically educating our people, Africans, so that we'll know which direction we're going in, why we're doing this, what this is about. And that, what happened in Guinea in 1958 is an important example for us. What they did, the hard work that they did to politically educate the people, that's a powerful something and really a role model for us today. So today we're actually talking about tactics. And this, I just want to read this section from the calendar, the 2019 calendar on tactics. And it says, tactics are the methods that we use to reach our objective of Pan-Africanism, the total liberation and unification of Africa under a socialist economic system. Tactics are flexible, based on the capacity of organizations and the ever-changing material realities that organizations find themselves in. Based on today's material reality, e.g., or for example, the confusion surrounding our identity, our enemy, and especially our objective, our tactics at this time can only be political education. Just what we were talking about in terms of Guinea. In fact, the calendar piece says it's the capitalists and their puppets confusing propaganda that determined the content of our 2019 calendar. We who are members of Pan-African revolutionary socialist organizations must use every medium to distribute truthful, life-saving propaganda, to teach our youth about their history and culture, to heed Nkrumah's call for a Pan-African coalition, an all-African committee for political coordination, and to forge alliances with progressive, revolutionary organizations around the world. When our people are politically educated inside Pan-African revolutionary socialist organizations, united ideologically, we can begin to move as one. At that time, when we are at the point of creating a union of African socialist states, a united socialist Africa, our tactics will change based on this new material reality. Armed struggle will be necessary because the capitalists will not give up their ruling class status peacefully. Now that's why Amar Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, wrote in Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare this point. Quote, the fact that revolutionary warfare is the only way in which the total liberation and unity of the African continent can be achieved. So the fact is that revolutionary warfare at some point will be the tactic that we have to use to create a union of African socialist states. But until that time, Amar, you can just think about it. You meet all kinds of people all day long, every day, and we're not in agreement about what we should be doing, what our objectives should be, when to move, what to do, even who we are as a people. You remember when the movie came out, what was that movie? And people begin to say, oh, we're African Americans, we're African, the Black Panther, remember?
Yeah, the first thing we have to agree on that we're an African people and that our solution lies with Africans all around the world, whether they're in the United States or on the continent or South America or Europe or the Caribbean. And that once we realize that first essential part that we're Africans, an African people, then we start coming together to figure out the solutions and the tactics to win for us all.
Yeah, and that whole thing about in agreement about our identity, who our enemy is. Some people still saying it's white people, all white people. They're not looking at the economic system of capitalism. They are thinking that you can exchange the white man or white people for African people and keep the same economic system of capitalism in place. And you remember some more Michelle saying that we don't want to Africanize exploitation. So it's not just about exchanging faces up there and keeping the economic system, And in our Watoto Uhuru Shule, our children's freedom school, we always sing the song about, it's not the man, it's the plan.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the economic plan that creates the type of man you are, because we can't survive without a system of production and work. So, it's the economic plan. And speaking of Watoto Shule, you start early with trying to politically educate. You got to try doing that on all kinds of levels, And one way is to reach the children early on.
That's right. As soon as the children go to school, they're educated in the capitalist plan and how to live and really how to receive or be subjugated by capitalism or live under that system. So we have to counteract those measures and begin to educate our youth early on what it means to fight against capitalism.
Yeah, and that's the importance of tactics. And tactics change, with the conditions or the time period you're in. And if you're in a time period where we all are in agreement about who we are as a people, who our enemy is, what our objective is, and the best strategy and all to reach our objective, when we're at that point, then we're talking about a unified people struggling for a unified socialist Africa. And at that point, you talk about armed struggle. Because you have some people, even today, Ahmad, talking about, we got to pick up guns and fight. But who you going to fight?
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? And what do you want once you finish with that fight? So I think I know I'm not quoting Dr. Nkrumah correctly, but he talks about the political kingdom comes first. You got to understand what you're trying to achieve, and then you move forward. So tactics are very important, and we're going to talk more about that. We're going to have some guests call in, some very knowledgeable guests about this whole question of tactics. We'll be talking with them in the next segment of our broadcast. So we hope you enjoy it and can give us some feedback on this whole podcast 21 that's dedicated to tactics.
Hello.
Wonderful. Oh, we made it. We did it.
So we are finished now, right?
No, we're just beginning. Oh, it's wonderful to have you. We introduced you a little bit, but we want you to tell us a little bit about yourselves and your organization, just so we can get started.
Okay. Well, greetings from Ghana, Accra, Ghana, West Africa.
Wow.
My name is Al, and this is Albie Walls.
And I'm Najeli.
So myself and Na will be sharing with you a little bit about some of the happenings here in Ghana and the work that we do with the All African People's Revolutionary Party. We're excited for the opportunity to share some of our perspective and some of our activities with you there in the belly of the beast.
Yes, belly of the beast, Babylon. Isn't that something? But, we're so thankful for you all the way from Ghana, our homeland. And, Albie, you and I have talked a lot about our organizations, both the All African People's Revolutionary Party and the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, that, we believe that the best strategy for reaching our shared goal of a united socialist Africa is organization. And we're trying to build organization. Today, though, we'd like to talk about tactics, these tools and means that we need to help us to reach our objective of Pan-Africanism. So we just have a few questions for you, and Brother Amar is going to ask a few.
So, what are some of the conditions our people face at home in Ghana?
Well, the conditions here are probably pretty typical of most parts of Africa and the conditions for African people generally wherever we are. Even outside of Africa, we find that we're struggling with things like poverty and access to health care, quality education, you name it. We're unemployment. Those are things that are beset with us here in Ghana, in Africa, and I know in most parts of the world where we exist. So that's the general, I think, perception, or that's the general conditions that we face. Obviously, there's some variation. There are a few Africans who are doing very well, who have very nice cars and big houses and multiple properties, but by and large, the vast majority of us don't get those opportunities or don't benefit from those comforts that many others do.
Yes, it's the same for most of us around the world, like you say. Another question. At this time, what are some specific tactics which our organizations utilize to address these conditions? Your or our organizations? Specifically your organization. What are some specific tactics your organization?
I would like to say that I understood that question also based on the AAPRP, but not a general Africa or Ghana challenge. So if I should narrow it down to, he has set a general picture of what conditions or challenges we face here in the continent. And poverty, it can be seen everywhere, even in Europe and some other parts of the world where they have advanced. You still find people who are poor. So, but narrowing it down to the AAPRP, I'll say that so far, I have not been in the party for a long time. So my take on the conditions faced will be organizing, where as a group, we are supposed to organize a lot, meet, discuss, coordinate, but that is a challenge I have noticed the AAPRP is faced with. And then having some financial aid, whether free or even if we have to pay something for getting some loans or some money to get the organization going. So that's what I would say. Perhaps he can continue with saying more, but I see how we can contribute, how we have contributed or can continue to contribute towards those challenges that we face. The organization tries for its members to pay dues, which don't come regularly, but we still have people who pay. And then occasionally when we have events, we have others who are willing to contribute voluntarily. So either their time or their money or some form of resource to help the organization move on with whatever it is planning. And then we also have some of the members within the organization also volunteering at events or contributing by collaborating with other institutions to hold events that are all geared towards promoting our organization. So perhaps I think Brother Albie will say some more.
Well, I think Sister Na has done a good job of characterizing our main challenges, as she said, is really organization. Those conditions that I mentioned in terms of poverty and unemployment, etc. Generally, you can't tackle it, you can't face those challenges unless you have an organized force to do it. And so that's our number one challenge right now, is trying to organize our people. And doing that requires educating them so that they understand why we're in the condition that we're in and what the solution to the problem is. And as she has mentioned, that because we're in a general situation under colonialism, neo-colonialism, where the people don't have financial resources, organizations don't have financial resources, so that adds to the challenge. So as she is saying, we basically find ways using our own limited resources or the limited resources of the people using their labor to volunteer their labor to do that organizing work, that education work, the political education work that takes place. So I think that's basically in summary, some of the things that she has pointed out. As far as some of the specific tactics that we use here, Sister Naz mentioned having programs. We conduct a number of programs working extensively in the education with students and youth. So we have programs with primary school, starting as early as primary school, in secondary schools and at universities. We find that unfortunately, most of our people don't have opportunities to go to university. It's a very small percentage of the population of our youth who have access to university level education. So we start at the primary level because we try and catch youth before they've been so confused and brainwashed into thinking that it's their fault, that they are poor and they're suffering because of their own lack of initiative or their own, it's just poor luck, or God has not shown on them properly or as they would like. So we try and catch them so they can understand that they have a role, or they can play a role in changing the system so that they and their families don't suffer. So we have one tactic is to work with schools to try and get students to understand and appreciate our conditions and the solutions to our conditions. So that's one activity. Another is working with other organizations, because we're not the AAPRP is not the only Pan-African organization in Ghana or in Africa. So we work extensively with other organizations as well. Even just yesterday, I guess, we had some members of our organization meeting in Abuja, Nigeria, here in West Africa, at a solidarity conference with the people of Cuba. And so we had Pan-African organizations coming together from some 23 different African countries. We had AAPRP members from East Africa, West Africa, Central Africa coming together with other Pan-African organizations to try and unify and defend and support the people and government of Cuba. So working together with other Pan-African organizations is another important tactic, much like we're working together as much as possible with the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party on any various programs and projects. Another activity, as was mentioned, is trying to do programs jointly. We conduct activities like African Liberation Day or Pan-African Women's Day with partnership with other organizations as well, because many of us are small. And so we try and unify and link up these small organizations to make stronger, more vibrant, more potent organizations. Those are some of the tactics I guess I can mention off the top. Those three things of programs, working in schools, and doing programs and projects jointly with other Pan-African organizations.
I think those are some wonderful, wonderful tactics. I mean, all of it, I think we both agree that what we have to do is politically educate. So how are you going to do it? And through programs, working with schools and doing joint projects with other Pan-African organizations, I think we agree. That's wonderful. Yes. And we here, we do programs, and we need to start getting in schools, and we're trying that this year with our Watoto Uhuru Shule to try to reach as many youth as possible who are already in school, might be in an after-school program here in the U.S. Right now, our Watoto Uhuru Shule is separate, and it meets on Saturdays. So, we do, it's free and open, and African children from 2 to 3 years old all the way up to 18 or 19 are free to come. They get a free meal, a full vegan meal at each of our things. And our curriculum is based on what we study as an organization. Who are we? Our identity, Mfecane, our whole enslavement process, the traditional Africa, and come all the way up to current reality. So we try that. And as you know, by reaching out to you and other organizations, we're also trying to do what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah called for, and that's an All-African Committee for Political Coordination. And he wrote to act as a liaison between all parties to, among other functions, promote widespread and ideological training. And you talked a lot about what your APRP is trying to do with other organizations, which is so beautiful and commendable, and what we need, because we can reach more people that way if we act as a coordinated body, as a collective. Then, we can be more effective in our political education process. So I don't know, I invite you to say anything else you want to say about Nkrumah's call for an AACPC and All African Committee for Political Coordination, and its role that it can play in today's reality.
Yeah, it's still something that's very much on the forefront of our plans and activities, the building of an All-African Committee for Political Coordination. So that's why even this meeting in Nigeria was important, because we have several members and potential members of that All-African Committee for Political Coordination at that program. As I mentioned, we have members, or we have not just AAPRP members, but Pan-Africanists from Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Zimbabwe, etc. And so that's what Nkrumah was talking about, was trying to, we can't do it from one place. Sometimes we get so focused just on the location where we are. We have to realize that this is much bigger than just Ghana, or much bigger than just U.S. It's African people all across the globe. So That's why this effort of building the political committee for political coordination is so important. We have some common things and common experiences, and there are common strategies. For example, the work that you're doing with the school system there, with the youth in schools, we can use some of those, I'm sure some of those same strategies and tactics here, and we can share that kind of information among each other, whether we're doing those projects on the continent of Africa or in the diaspora. So yes, that Committee for Political Coordination is an ongoing project, an ongoing piece of work. In all of our organizations, we work extensively. Some of those organizations were identified long ago in Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, but they're now emerging new organizations. There are countries that didn't even exist at the time that he wrote that book. So it's our job to update and assess and evaluate our current reality so that we can build on what the direction that he set for us some 50 years ago.
That's so well stated, because, tactics depend on your current reality. And what happened in 1972 is different from what's happening in 2019 or 2020. And, I'm so thankful for this whole idea. Remember, we did that joint paper for the All African Peoples Conference that was in December. And that's just a way for revolutionary organizations to begin to forge links. And as you know, Albie and Sister Nye, we also are at this time getting ready to produce a calendar that deals with highlights different revolutionary Pan-African organizations. And that's just another way of trying to forge links and trying to more effectively get our people politically educated. So we're thankful for you, Albie. We stay in contact with you. We're always enlightened by you, Sister Nye, and the whole All African People's Revolutionary Party. We appreciate the fact that we forged a link, and we're not going to let that link go.
Right. If I could, I wanted to, we can't really talk about tactics, contemporary tactics, without mentioning social media. In this day and age, it's like this is almost everyone has access to the internet and instant international global communication and information. So we need to take advantage of that tool, because certainly the enemy is using it to confuse us further, disorganize us more. So we need to try and use it to the extent that we can to help organize our people, as well as to help educate our folks. So we are definitely looking at that, constantly trying to enhance and develop our presence in social media. We can see the impact that it can have in terms of social change. Governments have been changed in large part because of the organizing that took place using the internet and using social media. So that's another tactic that exists today that we need to take advantage of. Even this podcast, for example, is a tactic that we'd have to take advantage of the opportunities that we have, and the limited resources can go a long way when we can use these tools that are available to many, many people.
It's such an important point. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I mean, anytime we can talk, you're in Ghana and we here in the United States, anytime we can carry on a conversation like this is beautiful. And also, the use of WhatsApp and other features, are very key in terms of Facebook, right? Ahmad knows a lot about Facebook. And so you're right, absolutely correct. That's an important point to make. We're so thankful. Brother Albie and Sister Nye.
Yeah, we're thankful for your input and your great discussion about our topic today.
So we hope you join us at some other point, and it's been enlightening. And take good care. Continue that wonderful work that you're doing in Ghana. Our people appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you too for having us. And we hope you continue with the good works too.
Thank you.
Struggle continues.
Or whatever.
In subsequent months, at times with the help of invited revolutionary guests, we will discuss additional key elements of Pan-Africanism that are embraced by the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party and other revolutionary Pan-African organizations.
Yes, we are so thankful for that wonderful conversation we had with Brother Albie and Sister Nye, aren't we?
Yes.
So, we want to have other invited revolutionary guests in the future. So join us next month when we'll discuss workers, women, youth, sectors exploited and oppressed, sectors to organize.
Meanwhile, leave comments on our website, prsponline.org. Like us on SoundCloud.com. Visit us on YouTube and like us on Facebook.
Remember, organization is the key. Join us, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, or some other Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist organization. A union of African socialist states is on the horizon.
We're here because of you. We're here because you were there. We've arrived from every corner of the planet to this nation to seek the fulfillment of the promise of America. We were promised a better life in our home countries, where we were told that privatizing water and electricity would make things run more efficiently. Instead, the quality remained almost the same, and the price was increased until it became an unaffordable luxury. Some corporations are more efficient than government, but their motivation is not the health or well-being of the people. It's only about profit. Everything else, their image, their human resources, their public relations only exist to protect the reality behind it. Once upon a time, we were told that nationalization would prevent growth by limiting competition, that our countries were nothing without the companies that invested in us. And so they privatized everything. Everything in our country was owned by people that had no connection to our culture, by those who never had our interest at heart. They didn't care about our survival or well-being. They just wanted to turn a profit by raping the land, by exploiting our people, our industry, and our resources. They took everything we built and made it theirs. First by creating racism to justify slavery, building the capital for capitalism, and then when they gave us what they called liberty, everything we had was still owned by them. Our governments told us that socialism was the real enemy and that we would have freedom, but the foreign powers and corporations were the ones with the real freedom, the freedom to take all the wealth generated by our work and our land and give us only a small percentage of the scraps from the table. Their lust for power and their greed drove them to betray not only us, but themselves and the word of their own God. While some used missionaries and donations to offset this abuse, other countries and companies were blatant with their crimes, using war, disease, and sanctions that killed millions. They supported corrupt governments that were almost like the old slave masters in their repression of the people, because their loyalty was to those who enabled them, installed them, and kept them in power. They became the bastard children of American industry, kleptocracies, governments of thievery. They protected the corporations and went to war against their own people to preserve those profits. The puppet rulers were given billions of U.S. tax dollars to fund civil wars, right-wing death squads, execute political dissidents, sympathetic clergy, and even overthrow democratically elected governments. And so the age of revolution began again. They painted it as godless terrorists versus the free world and the free market. But the free market has never been free, because the market does not regulate itself. It is manipulated like a puppet, and it survives because of its image. Destroy the image and the enemy will die. Such is the same in the rap industry, for the major label superpowers treat the underground like the third world. When they need new assets, new artists to prostitute or sign and put on the shelf to use their songs. When they needed new concepts, music, and publishing to steal from producers, they came to the underground, to the third world. They took our culture, our property, and our industry, and our resources, even using our own people to help them exploit us. But behind the mask of efficiency they claim that we need to succeed, they're no better than us. Their economic advertisement was always a lie. A few got rich, but most were given an illusion of wealth, almost as if it was designed for failure. Opportunity comes at the price of the soul in the music. So remember what they are underneath the fancy architecture, glitter and rented jewelry, the cars, the IMF loans, the seeds with suicide genes, 20-year contracts and oil blood money. Build your defenses, my independent brothers and sisters. They'll stop at nothing to get what they want. They paint the third world underground as savage and backward, but the superpowers are no less corrupt. They've just learned to disguise it better, cause they fix elections too. They embezzle tax money. They go to war for resources. They fund terrorism for their own benefit. And when there's enough at stake, history's taught us that they'll even assassinate their own presidents.
Open Your Eyes by Immortal Technique.